Hello, I'm Colonel Nuger of the USS Doyle, and I will be your host for this edition of the StarBase 118 podcast. Thank you again for joining me. Out of all the things that I do around the fleet, this is one I find quite enjoyable. Today, we are going to be bringing you an interview with a member of the fleet who is not only one of our community's captains, but also a published author. She will be discussing all the things about writing a novel and how it worked for her. But before we get into that, though, Commander Dickens would like to welcome our new members to the fleet.
It is always a great thing to welcome new members to the best fleet on the internet. I am Commander Marcus Dickens of the USS Invicta, and I would like to welcome the following graduates for the months of May and part of June. Nathaniel Wilmer of the USS Constitution B, Esimi Larand of the USS Gorgon, Taglin Alce of the USS Constitution B, Kasema Dowupa of the USS Gorgon, Duncan McPherson of the Embassy of Duronis, Miles Driscoll of the USS Constitution B, Aquila Marius of the USS Gorgon, Christopher Lambert of the USS Darwin A, and Stephanie Harrick of the USS Invicta. Welcome to the fleet!
An organization affiliated with the Orion Syndicate has struck at the Federation Embassy in the Duronis sector. The embassy security staff has reported unauthorized access of Federation records that seem to target a Vulcanoid member of the community. At the moment, it is unknown if this is a specific target or a more overall aggression against the species. More to follow as we learn it.
Several months ago, a Sovereign-class starship called the USS Gorgon vanished without a trace under mysterious circumstances, and is still missing as Starfleet Command continues in their search for answers. The Gorgon, under the command of Captain Quinn Reynolds, was in the Menthar corridor when she disappeared, and has yet to be seen or heard from since. According to one Commodore Nathaniel Sanderson of Starfleet Communications, as of this moment, Starfleet has not given up hope of finding the USS Gorgon and her crew. The investigation is still underway.
Hello, I'm Stella Luna, and this is a special report from the Federation News Service. While examining a Borg threat to the shipping lanes supplying the new outpost Unity, the USS Darwin A found the result of a shocking Borg experiment on the unnamed planet PR-652, where the USS Darwin was tasked to investigate a strange Borg signature. A number of away teams were tasked with investigating the crashed remains of the Borg spear, and independently concluded that the surviving Borg drones were disconnected from the hive mind of the collective, and that nearly all of their nanoprobes had deserted them as a swarm of sentient nanites. Negotiations with the disconnected drones were unsuccessful. However, another team was able to establish a rapport with the nanite cloud. A difficult decision was made to eradicate the Borg presence from the planet before relocating the nanite swarm to a new home. It is unknown if Starfleet will investigate this decision, though it is common for the Admiralty to rule in favor of the commanding Starfleet officer. Starfleet captains are given a lot of training and have a lot of experience. The Admiralty is not in the habit of second-guessing the decisions they make unless there is gross negligence on their part, commented Lieutenant Ralph Porter, aide to Admiral Albright, who is the chairman of the Captain's Advisory Council. This is Stella Luna, and you're listening to the Federation News Service.
Hello, everybody. This is Colonel Nuger of the USS Doyle, and today I have the privilege of interviewing Jessica, who is the captain of the USS Constitution and plays as Jelana Rogel. Hello,
Hello.
Jessica. Or
Hi,
Jess,
Jonathan.
excuse me.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Hi, and thank you for having me.
Hey, no problem. I really do appreciate you taking the time to do this interview because I know it took us a little bit to get the whole system up and running and wait for me to write the silly questions and get them to you.
Yeah, I can live with that. It was more time to get more appreciative for the final date.
Right. Because sometimes I got halfway through the questions and I'm like, is this going to be enough? And am I going the right direction?
I'm pretty sure you're doing great.
Well, thank you very much. The point of this interview, as we've discussed before, is I wanted to introduce somebody who is a writer, which you are. You have published a book. And I wanted to introduce people that, the writers who are here just aren't Star Trek fans. They do have passions and hobbies on the outside. And I wanted to showcase yours due to the fact that you have published your book. So one of the questions, the first question I'd like to ask you is to tell everybody a little bit about yourself when you're not sitting in the captain's chair and running the Constitution.
Well, there is not much time left after that, but
I understand.
Yeah, but I'm doing actually quite a lot. So I do more writing, as you just said, and I'm doing a lot of Photoshop work inside and outside of SB 118. I also I'm a content creator for a virtual environment called Second Life, and next to that, I do love watching movies and play games. Literally any moment I can.
So if not sitting down doing captain stuff, you're either like writing artist stuff or artisting and and playing games. Any specific game you like?
Actually, I like too many, but I'm constantly playing Guild Wars 2 with a friend of mine, or every now and then Star Trek Online or Perfect World and other single game items like The Sims and stuff like that. Yeah.
Awesome. Yes, my wife is addicted to Sims.
I can understand that.
She likes to design all the houses of everything, and she doesn't really get into playing the game.
Oh my God, she's like me. I'm building mansions and villas and everything, and then when it comes to the game, I'm like, yeah, it's not really fun. Let's do the next house.
Exactly. That's what she does. As we mentioned earlier, you've self-published a book. You're a freelance writer, and you've got 2 books published on Smashwords.com, which one is your main novel, and the other one is a book of poetry. Am I correct on that?
Yes, you are.
So please, give them a rundown of what your 2 books are.
Well, the easiest one is the poetry book. It's a collection of poetry I've been collecting forever. Like, ever since I wrote my first one until the most recent one. Of course, I had to translate them because, as most people know, I'm German.
Mm-hmm.
So they were in German, of course, unless you count the last one that was an English original. But it's a collection from love poems to environmental stuff and social critical stuff. It's like a real colorful garden of poetry that comes out of my messy mind.
So poetry is a way you like to express yourself, is what I'm taking. Like some people like to write journal entries, some blog. Is poetry kind of your way, is what you're saying?
Yeah, because I suck at journals.
I'm not very good at that stuff. I'm so used to typing so fast. It's writing by hand is a little slow.
Yeah.
What's the title of your poetry book?
It's a kaleidoscope of my mind.
That's right. And it is available on Smashwords if anybody's interested in go looking. Now, your second book, that's your big one. I know I've read it. I'm tired and I can't remember the title and everything. So please go ahead and explain your second book.
So my second book is the first part of a trilogy. And it's called Srakalor. That is possibly why you can't remember it.
That's right. The apostrophe.
Exactly.
I remember that.
Yes, and the original idea of that came through roleplay, actually, because I was part of a roleplay in an urban environment with all these mystical creatures like vampires and demons, angels, mystics, and all this other kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I played a character in that, and the first 2 weeks inspired the story of the book that totally derailed everything of the story I played in roleplay, so it's not the same thing. But,
Yeah.
But that was the inspiration for the story that is huge in my mind and will be put into 3 books. And the first one is about this character Alana,
Mm-hmm.
who notices that she has magical powers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the book starts, actually, where she puts the shed in the garden on fire, and her parents freak out and tell her to keep it a secret and go on with her life. But it's not that easy when you have these powers. So in the next 8 years, until she's of age, I think you say it in English, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Like when
until
she's
she-
an adult.
Yes, exactly. Until she comes of age, lots of things go wrong. And when she's 18, she gets kicked out of her house and sent to the city Ashwood Falls.
And that's where all the adventure really starts picking up.
Exactly, because that is the city with all these mythical creatures that show that she is not a freak. And that is where the story goes on. She learns a lot of things, meets lots of people who actually help her to become the best she can be.
Hey, I know I've read the first book and I did enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to your next 2.
I'm happy to hear that.
How long have you been writing?
Don't let me lie. I think I started around the age of 8, I think,
Mm-hmm.
with poem stuff first, and then a couple of short stories, or rather the beginnings of short stories, because I never pulled through.
I've got enough of those.
Yeah. So I have a random collection in a huge notebook with lots of stuff that I had ideas for that I never really did. And I kept writing and writing and writing, and I just can't stop. It's what I always say is I'm a writer because I can't not write. I have to.
Yeah. Besides, you would say it's what, a fantasy novel? Is that what you would, urban fantasy? Is that what you would, the genre?
I would think it's a really, really big mix of many things. It's paranormal, fantasy, a bit of romance inside, a bit of thrilling inside. So it's a kind of eclectic kind of fantasy,
Okay.
urban, paranormal thing.
It was unique on its own when I read it.
Yes, it is.
Is there anything else you write besides poems in this book? Do you have like a specific genre outside of this eclectic style that you prefer to write in?
Actually, no. It's very eclectic. It depends on what comes out of my mind. Sometimes I have this big idea for a romance novel. Sometimes something that is more fantasy or more a bit of a thrill. Although thrilling is not much of my strong suit, but I enjoy it. But
Yeah.
I don't have a fixed genre. I even wrote kids stories that don't fit into anything there. So, yes.
You don't allow yourself to get stuck in a title.
No, absolutely not. It would totally block myself and my creativity out. No way.
Well, what I find fascinating, we have discussed in chat and so forth, is the fact that as you said earlier, you're German, so English is your second language, and you have published works in both those languages. How was that for you, writing and publishing in your second language?
Exciting and scary. Let's say the publishing part was easy because I can read English pretty great, so or pretty well, I think. And I understand everything really fine, so I can just go in and do it. But going to do everything before that is really scary, and I have lots of thoughts about English language and if I use it right.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, I have never published in German. So
Oh,
since you
really?
said no, I have never done that.
I thought you did. That's completely my bad.
Yeah,
Have you
it's
ever thought
okay.
of providing a German translation copy of your book?
I keep being pestered by my mother about that.
Okay, so it's not my
So
idea completely.
No, it's not. It's actually my mom doesn't speak English at all.
Okay.
So for her, it would be great to have a German version of that. But to be honest, so that's really a fun tidbit about me. I forget my own mother tongue. So I forget German words. I forget German grammar. I'm horrible with that. So whenever I try to do something in German, I have to really concentrate, and I would need 5 editors to correct all my mistakes.
So you're saying it's easier for you to write in English than it is into German?
It is. After about 6 years of doing like 99% of my things in English, it becomes easier to do things in English. Yes.
Huh. I had a friend that did the same thing. He spoke Japanese. He lived in Japan. He did that to the point that when he would come back from the States, back to the States, I should say, he would stumble and he would stop. And he's like, he had to physically think about how to put English words together. And this was his normal language.
Yes, that is exactly how I'm with German. So every week when I telephone my parents, I have to concentrate really, really hard and still mix in English words because I forgot the German ones.
So I assume with your friends, you speak English and not German?
Most of the time. I have one friend that I speak German with, but we switch into English without noticing. And like half an hour later, we're like, why the hell are we speaking English?
That's funny because I've seen that, and it just... I can only speak one language, as you know. So when people do that and they don't realize it, my brain just can't comprehend it. It's just amazing to me that you can do that.
Yeah, it's fun. It's really fun.
So what do you enjoy most about writing your book?
To get the story out of my brain.
Does it stick there and bother you?
It is. It does really. And the characters are nagging me too. So it's like I have a split personality, but not with 2, more like 10 personalities in my brain. And I have all these stories there. And as you know, a brain has a limited capacity. So
yeah.
It gets really, really tight in there. So I try to get all these ideas out onto paper, even if only for notes, so I can think about something else. So yeah, and that is what I really love about writing, that I just get all these ideas out and see this world building up to something really fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like I know some of my universes I've built, there's just so much of it, and I just can't get it all out. And I can completely relate to that. It's pretty cool.
It is. Oh, yeah.
You know what they say, right? You're either suffering from multiple personality disorder or you're a writer.
Yeah, that's true.
So what do you like the least about writing?
The self-doubt. Honestly.
Can you elaborate?
Yeah, the whole, when it comes to language, for me in the first place, it's like, am I doing it right? Because there's so many people who tell you there's one way to write correctly, and then the other ways are all wrong, and I think that is poppycock.
I completely agree with you.
Can I say poppycock? Yeah, right?
Yes, you may.
Okay.
Surprisingly, that's not considered a rough word in English. That's considered a word that we're like, oh, English, as in the British.
I'm happy to hear that. Okay, I love that word.
Feel free.
So that is total poppycock. So, but I still have these little nagging voices in my head about the English grammar, because I know I'm not perfect in that. I might be pretty good, but I'm not perfect. So, especially after, I think we talked about that when I got a review about English problems in my first novel.
Mm-hmm.
It was really one of these moments where I was like, oh my God, why the hell am I writing?
Yeah, I do remember those reviews.
Yes, and that is one of these things that I'm very self-conscious about, is my English grammar and the mistakes I still make. But so that is the least favorite part, even though I really love writing in English. So it's kind of a Damocles sword above my head.
Well, you do very well, and sometimes I'm like, I see people who can write in English as a second language. I'm like, that's so much better than I can write, and I'm natural born American.
You're writing really well. I've seen your stuff.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
So, what's on the next on your list of stories? I know you've got the sequel, to the part 2 to the Sra Kalor. You've already got your poetry book out. I know you're working on a science fiction novel that is for a role-playing game. Is there anything
Yes.
else on your schedule?
Well, the sequel, the novella. Yeah, actually, there's. I have ideas.
Why am I not surprised?
Yeah, I have ideas for 3 more stories. I don't know yet if they will be short stories or novellas or novels, but they are on my to-do list. And one of them is I would say it's a romance, the romance story. The other one is like a travel through your own mind, which is hard to describe. So basically, it's about a woman who tells her story after she died and went to hell and has to self-reflect about why she landed there and if that is really justice or not.
That's an interesting idea.
Yeah, it came to me while I was sleeping, so I love that.
Oh, I've had some ideas that way too. I'm like, oh, that was weird, or oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, and the third one I don't really know much about yet, but it's more in the direction of a horror story, which is something very different for me because I don't like horror stories.
Oh, that will be interesting.
That will be, yes.
I know I like to write science fiction, and harder science fiction, with more technicality and everything instead of like science fantasy. And my wife and I, we did a bet thing where, I would try a different genre. We did it randomly, and I wound up having to write a romance story. One of these days I've got to write one, and that's the least I'm comfortable with. So I can completely understand where you're coming from.
I really love when people who write move out of their comfort zone and try something completely different or they are not comfortable with. So that's great. I love that.
Well, I'm glad you do. I don't.
Well, I'm not saying that I love it when I do it, but I love it when others do.
It's entertaining.
It is, yes.
That I can understand. So, in closing, is there anything you would like to say to your audience, in any area like writing or anything you would tell somebody who would be interested in improving their writing in that route? The stage is yours.
Oh, yeah, that's always a question I hate. There's so much I would like to say to people. So, one thing is stick with it. It's very important that even if you have blows into your stomach and land in the dirt, just stand up and go with it again. One thing I have learned about writing is that you can't write when you don't read. So read a lot and take a look at other writers, how they write, how they use it, read articles and inform yourself about things that you're not really secure in. Like for me, it's grammar, for example. So read a lot and adapt and find your own way somewhere in the middle, because you don't want to sound like someone else. It's your voice, it's your writing, so go with it, enjoy the ride. Most importantly, enjoy the ride, because writing is a lot of fun. And no matter what anyone tells you, just go with it. That's basically it.
Hey, honest and straightforward. I like that.
Yeah.
So your website, that if they wanted to find out more about your books and your work down the line, besides of what you do here at StarBase 118,
Yes.
where can they go?
They can go either find me on Facebook, which is the Facebook page Journey of Words. I think it's Journey, right?
Yes.
Yeah. The same name is the website. That would be a WordPress site, and I have to look that up.
No,
so
don't
I can
worry.
give you a link.
Don't worry about that. I will make sure when this interview goes public that your information is available. And to the listeners, if you're listening to this on YouTube, you can take a look down at the YouTube description. It should be in there. If you're downloading this through a mobile podcast system, I'm going to make sure that the information is in your podcast data. If you have any trouble, email myself or her. You should be able to find it easily on the wiki, or talk to your captain. Or if you're outside of StarBase 118, you can contact her. Go ahead, give them your email. At least give them a direction.
Yeah, okay. So my email is werner/jessica@gmx.de, which should be somewhere in the description too, I think, because it's a German name, is really hard to pronounce sometimes.
I'll make sure to provide your email too.
Yeah, but you can find me on Goodreads as Jessica Werner, of course, on Facebook, Jessica Werner, and Journey of Words blog and Facebook page, and in SB118, of course.
Of course. Well, thank you very much, Jess, for taking the time out of your schedule. You're in a completely different time zone than I am. I really appreciate you taking the time to meet up with me online and doing this interview.
Oh, it was a pleasure. I had a blast. Thank you.
I'm glad. I know people are going to enjoy listening to this. So you have a good night. And
you too. Thank you.
Hopefully we'll have you back again.
Yes, I hope so.
All right. And that's it. Thank you for tuning in to the StarBase 118 podcast. If you have any idea or suggestion, or you would like to record some of your own pieces, please stop by our forum and drop a line in the podcast topic. Thank you all, and keep on simming.